So yeah, like with doing this thing.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are now tuned in to the U Turn Show right here live on WBIS LP 106 FM on your FM dial. Um, I am your host, Richard A. Taylor, here, 10 www.wbisawesomeradio.org. live. You can listen, download our app on Google Play. You can download the app on the Apple Store as well as Alexa. I'm here. I want to thank God for once again this opportunity to be before you. I also want to thank the awesome radio CEO Akila Digpin for giving me this platform to highlight people like myself who have went down the wrong path and have changed their life for the better, making a complete U-turn uh, in the right direction. So feel free to call in on our live studio line, uh, area code 252-756-2008. Interact with the call. Feel free to share the live on Facebook as well. We are also live on GPAT 23 TV here in Greenville. But I'm so excited today. I have a very special guest. This guy is more than a guest. He's actually a friend. I've known this guy since the first grade, and our lives have intersected uh, for the better part of 35 years. So I want to introduce my guest tonight, Mr. Michael A. Williams. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing just fine, Mr. Richard Taylor. How are you?
Thank you, sir. I am doing wonderful, man. It's such a pleasure to have you on, man. This has been a long time coming. This is the fourth episode, and things have opened up for you to be on the show tonight. So I definitely want to just start off with where you at in life now. I know that you are a businessman, an entrepreneur in your own right. So just give the audience a little bit about what you do and the things you have done.
Well, Richard, right now, I'm focused on really building. I do landscaping full time, and then I have my own business, which is Exquisite Solutions, where I do power washing and tree trimming and painting, whatever basically needs to be done. It's becoming very lucrative for me ever since. I really found my way. I would say.
Okay, how long have you been getting that business off the ground? Would you say?
Right now it's probably been like 3.5, maybe 4 years. I made a lot of mistakes when I first started out. I
Okay.
didn't really know the formula. I didn't know the formula to maintain a business, but now that I feel like that, you know, um, I've gained the formula, which is awesome to me. There's nothing that we can't do. Nothing. I don't care what status of life you think that you are on. If you just really, follow the rules that you set for yourself, like you're gonna achieve it. There's nothing that can stop that, especially when you get focused.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think your business is picking up because it seems like every time I call you, you on the way to
I'm
a
working.
job, you doing a job, or you just leaving a
I'm
job.
working.
So
I'm
I
working.
definitely want to commend that hard working, man. And also, many people don't know this, but you also the author of a book as well, which I helped publish called Climatized. And we're going to get into, kind of the subject matter because the Climatized talks about how, we went from little kids or not only but a lot of people went from little kids who love, you know, playing around in the neighborhood and having fun to engage in a life of crime, as many
Yeah.
as our peers did. So, just going to start off with your childhood. What would you say your childhood was like, and how did it start off?
Well, I had an awesome childhood. From the age of, I guess, when I was born all the way up to around maybe 9, 10, 11 years old. We was, two-parent home. My mother, she was the best. My father, he was the best. I can't speak nothing bad about even one of those because, they took care of us and they loved us. And, we flourished in that. We had great Christmases, But after a while, that took a turn for the worse. And, I don't want to make it seem like that's something that's terrible because not only did it happen to my father, but it happened to me as well, along with my daughter. But basically, it was traumatic for me when my father left the household. more so than anything else. 'Cause I was close with my dad, and it really did something to me. And I didn't realize what it had done until years later after I was, gone. But that's neither here nor there.
Oh, okay. And that's what I think my last guest, or a couple of my guests, talked about the absence of the father in the home, and how I think the guest before last, his father had actually gotten killed. And my first guest, he said his father wasn't there. So that seems to be a common trend, in communities, and not only the community worldwide, but also in so-called African American or black communities.
Well,
And
dare I say that that may have been one of the deciding factors of what's going on with our youth today. Let me see if I can paint a picture for you. You know, back in the '60s and the '50s, when my grandfather was alive, my grandfather used to take us as grandchildren and my dad out to the hog farm. And he used to show us how to farm. If he had time, he'd show us how to work on the tractor or so forth and so on. But I didn't get too much of that because my grandfather died not too long after that. But my father, he was one of the ones that, decided to go to school and get an education. And the education that he got afforded him the ability to be able to take care of his family and stuff like that. So he wasn't too much hands on. So it's like we were somewhat neglected in that era, as far as when his grandfather was taking them out to show them how to work on the car, so forth and so on, to the era where I grew up in, where the father said, okay, I'm doing this. I don't know how to show you how to work on the car, and this, that, and the third. So, we lack that in our era coming up. And I think it had a profound effect because it's like, well, first of all, let me not get off the subject. Let me explain to our viewers what happened to me as far as the wrong turn. You know,
okay,
as I was growing up, I had that family structure, but once it was taken from me, I would like to say that I became at a point where it was a brain suspension because it was a traumatic event for me, and I didn't have that father figure there that could teach me how to exercise my intellect over my emotions.
okay,
And whereas we grew up with, and a lot of children nowadays are growing up with a single parent household where their mother is there, and the mother, a woman, naturally exercises her emotions over her intellect, meaning she bases her decisions off how she feels. Whereas a man would base his decisions off what he knows as facts. So missing that part and growing up watching part self, once my father left the household, it effectively took my mother out of the household because my mother wanted to maintain the lifestyle that she lived with two incomes with my father. So, she started getting out there and she was hustling and bustling. And don't get it twisted. Now, my mama, she's one of the greatest hustlers I ever seen in my life. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
She knows how to get it from the dirt. She does to this day. But the adverse effect to that was that at 9 or 10 years old, and this happening to children way younger than me now, but at 9 or 10 years old, I was forced to become an adult. I was trusted by my mother to do my homework and trusted by my mother to go and fix myself something to eat, get in the bed, get up for school the next morning. But instead, I like to play video games and watch the movies late at night. So when she come in and she goes straight to bed because she's tired after working all these long hours trying to provide for us three boys, she couldn't really say, "Hey, did you do your homework? Let me check it." That neglect and that trust bred what I would like to call Cisco. San Francisco was my name once I entered into the streets. That was common because I followed my oldest brother, and he liked to do the same thing I like to do, and I like to do the things that his friends like to do. So I naturally went to the streets. And once I took on that name, San Francisco, I took on all of the attributes that came along with San Francisco. And those attributes were negative in nature because that's all I knew. What was negative in nature: smoking weed, manipulating women, making money, and living life vicariously, if I may say, you know.
And I interject because like I said, it's almost like I had a firsthand experience with this, and I do want to give a shout out to Wixie Williams, your mother, because I mean no one worked and hustled harder than she did. Like she provided a life for you guys, but that in turn always brought her out of the household, which it gave y'all liberties to do a lot of things that
We shouldn't have been doing.
someone like myself with my father in the house couldn't do, and that's why I think I like to hang out with y'all. But um with that, you mentioned about your older brother and taking on some negative attributes. How did watching you mentioned movies,
Yeah,
and actually I remember you talking about Scarface when we were
yeah,
probably
loved
like
it,
10 or 11, and I didn't know who Scarface was. You was like, you don't know who Tony Montana was, and I was like, no.
loved it,
And I
loved
did
it.
actually started watching that movie till I was maybe 13, 14, 15. But how did the movie, and I know you used to listen to a lot of music, how did that kind of shape your those
Okay,
attributes that you mentioned?
let's first take it back to the book Climatized, right? The definition climatize in itself meaning it's a subconscious thing. It's a mental thing. And when I talk about climatize, to give it an example of what climatize is, if you're in a house and it's 60 degrees in the house and you step outside and it's 85 degrees, your body temperature is gonna get climatized. You're gonna come up to the degree. But in this case, I'm using this as a form of mental subjection, climatized, meaning that you have been mentally, because anytime you use the word eyes or ism or any of the things, it's an action word. So climate, eyes, meaning that I have become part of what the climate is. And
Okay.
so when we look at the word, I mean, when we look at what the climate was in our culture, because there's two cultures here. I don't want anybody to misconstrue that. You have one culture that has all the power, and you have a culture that lives within the power. It's somewhat similar to a question I like to ask people: Are you existing or are you existence? At this present moment, we are all existing because the powers that be write our laws, and we have to be subject to those laws. But growing up in a culture of criminality, it is directly contrary to what law says. So what I mean is we know that we don't supposed to carry no gun, but yet we carry the gun because we feel like that law don't apply to us because
Okay.
it's not part of our culture. Our culture, we seen our uncles do it, we seen our cousins do it, we seen these people do it, and the same rules apply when we accept certain things in our life, like when we accepting that name San Francisco. But in the book Clemens House, I talk vehemently about, I speak about when I committed my crime. And when I committed my crime, after all the lights came back on, I saw the street lights finally again. I felt the wind blowing, the trees came back, everything was there now. And the first thing I did was grab myself by my head and said, Michael, what have you done? So Cisco was no longer there. It was Michael. See, Michael was the name that my mother gave me. And there was a name that was of purity. Cisco was a name that the streets gave me. And so when I accepted Cisco over Michael, I didn't know that I was accepting all the subconscious levels of criminality that was there. Meaning that when I used to watch these movies and I used to listen to this music and I used to have all this free time to absorb and eat, all of that was before me. Subconsciously we started creating these rules by mafia movies. A lot of people to this day still no women, no children. We handle our own. We don't go to the police. This, that, and the third. And that was what we grew up by. And not knowing and understanding that me accepting that character, me accepting myself as being called a nigger or a black man, and me accepting all of these attributes, these names come with spirits. Because if you understand the word spirit derives from a Latin word spiritus, meaning breath, everything you speak carries with it a spirit.
Okay.
So when you were stringing along saying, "What's up, my nigga?" That word "nigga" is the negative calitone that seeps through the person's body. So they start acting out unconsciously these characteristics of the word nigga. Just like the word black. If we look at the word black, according to our dictionary, the word black means to be void of life, to be negative, to be not good, and so forth and so on. So when you call yourself a black man, you are saying that you are not good man, or you are a man that is void of life. So when you accept that, you take on those negative attributes. Let me see if I can give you a little bit more clearer understanding of that. If everybody in the crowd is saying, "What's up, my nigga?" and then one person decides to act out as a nigga, then it's gonna draw the nigga out of everybody else. And I don't mean to use that word because it's a negative connotation to me, but I'm trying to use it in the perspective of showing how us accepting these words is what's causing the breakdown between the spirit man and the carnal, not part self. I don't want to go too deep, but the
Okay.
spirit man and the carnal man is something that I don't even want to deal on that right now. But in today, when I was younger, I believed in my heart that that man was my enemy because I myself didn't like what I was told about myself subconsciously, and so subconsciously I already done made that man subhuman. And the only way you can make somebody subhuman, you can't. I read this book. It was by Geronimo Pratt, The Last Man Standing, and he was talking about how when he was sent over to Vietnam, they weren't told that the Vietnam people they was Viet Cong and all of these different types of subhuman attributes, so it can make it easier for them to kill them. So the same thing is applying over here in our community. It'd be that I'm from Elm Street and he's from North End, or he's from Devereaux Street and he's from, if you're not from this street, I subhumanize you. So it makes it easier for me to face you and kill you because I don't like myself and I don't like you. And I know that don't sound like real good because nobody wants to believe that they've been duped in that matter, but you know, I believe that Rick, I can't see you. Rick, I can't see you, bro. I don't even know if I'm still up here or not. But either way, I was made to believe that that man was my enemy, and we all separate ourselves to this day in the same manner. Can you hear me?
Are you serious? Yes. I'm like that. Everybody like they told us, and everybody that I spoke to, they everybody that has one year, I'll say like, so what was your favorite like non I know if people all watch them and rappers looking right. Oh, that's I know. You know it's that when I'm doing podcasts. Oh, the last time either one of them put something on, they'll say it's bookie. It's
Can you hear me?
I got you.
All right, so yeah, we're back live. Sorry about that. Uh, that little delay. But yeah, so we you were talking about how you started to use your mind in prison. Actually, I heard stories about how much you used to study in
No
prison,
doubt.
and you use your mind. You use your mind and your time wisely. Was that something that helped you on the inside, and also your transition from inside to outside on gaining all of this knowledge that you speak about right now?
Let me speak of it from this perspective, right? Anytime that you gain any sense of knowledge or
Not in,
education, you become confident in yourself. You become more self-aware. You become, you'll feel more,
yeah,
what's the word, powerful. You understand what I mean? So, but that knowledge that I was seeking didn't necessarily come from a school setting or any of these different avenues that we seek from it. There, it came from the inside. It came from within me because it's like I used to read and I didn't understand then, but over time it would be revealed to you. And that's what started changing me because the penitentiary itself has a fugitive quality with them walls, you know. Them qualities can destroy you if you allow it to, if you become it. See, I was more so like the scripture said, you can be in the world but not of the world, you know. And that's how I was. I went in and I started striving to gain this knowledge of myself and figure out why. Why did I even act the way that I acted? And when I came to the understanding that these are seeds of so, these are sown seeds of separation that has been sown in us from day one, then I realized that, you know, basically I was a sucker because now it's like I said before, every time we take away one of our brothers or one of our sisters by gun violence or by any means by from another black man or black woman, so-called black man, black woman, then we are losing overall because we are the only one of our kind. We are the only people in the planet on this planet that is called black man and black woman because we have no nationality. Let me give you a little bit of education on what I mean by nationality. In the United States Constitution, it says that there is five parts that makes a whole man. Five parts. You got to have mind, body, and soul, a nationality, and a divine creed. This is in the Constitution of the United States. According to the Constitution of the United States, we are only three parts of that. We have a mind, body, and a soul, but we do not have a divine creed nor a nationality. Therefore, we don't have the full strength of the law behind us as it would be in the case of a man that came from Italy and he know his family came from Italy, so he could call himself an Italian American or a Mexican who came from Mexico, call himself when his child is born a Mexican American, and they have to abide by that. They just can't go up to him and say, "Hey, you can't do this, that, and the third." You have to have actual laws in place, especially if he's a diplomat. But in our case, we take on this African American, we take on this black man, we take on this nigga, which are all misnomers because no matter what, Africa is a continent, but it's not a recognized united continent in the UN. Therefore, Africa itself does not exist as a whole. Now you got Uganda flag that's over there, you got Zimbabwe flag that's over there, you got all of these different individual states. It's no more different than how we got individual states over here. But over here, the United States have agreed to allow themselves to be integrated into one flag, and so you could call yourself an Italian American, but you can't call yourself an African American because Africa is not recognized by law to be a unified country. Now, 2005, Muammar Gaddafi and Louis Farrakhan did attempt to make a United States of Africa, and that would have automatically nationalized every so-called black man in America, and we would have had rights to be part of the African culture. But that didn't happen.
all right. So with with everything that happened, what would you consider your U-turn to be as
My
far as
U-turn.
your change of mindset and you're changing into a productive citizen that you are today, and what do you plan to do to kind of rectify all of these problems that you have spoken about, especially with the youth?
Well, make no mistake, Rick. We are all responsible for what's going on with our youth. You know, every last one of us, from the the, the non-criminal to the criminal. You know, when it comes to our youth, we are all responsible. But this is what made me realize that I had to make a change for my life. Don't nobody want to do no life sentence in no penitentiary. Period. You know, I did virtually a life sentence in the penitentiary, 16 years and 4 months. You know,
But you're
and I
pretty much here now to make to make that difference
yeah,
to
the
those
difference
who are on the verge of doing something like that. So,
exactly.
what is the plan, going forward?
Okay, so I spoke about it a little bit earlier, and I touched on it. The only way that we can stem this tide, we have to put in place meaningful programs that is virtually free to start training these babies how to work with their hands. Now that would solve a whole lot of problems as far as if they want to be a carpenter. We got free program where they can come in and learn 3 months, 90 days how to do carpentry work. We can teach them 90 days how to run a forklift, or how to go out here and lay sod, or like I'm going to do, because I have my power washing company. I have started petitioning. I'm going into a neighborhood maybe in about a couple of more weeks from now. I'm gonna pick one house that looks the dirtiest, and I'm gonna tell all the parents there, hey, you want to teach your son, or if they 24, 25, 23 years old, or 8, 9, 10-year old, they want to be there, they want to learn how to wash a house, I'm going to show them how to wash a house properly. And that way they'll have a skill, but it's not just me. It has to be any and everybody that has any form of education, whether it be a young sister that's a financial analyst and she wants to go in and she want to sit down and take her time out on the weekend and show these babies how to work them numbers, or somebody that knows this construction. Come on in, show them, but I'm trying to get it to a point where it'll be for free. But I need, I have the company I work for, which is American Homes for Rent. They have already told me pretty much they would donate their time and their resources to training these babies, because they believe in that. They say, yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. But not only that, I have the See More Want More program, where those children that show exceptional, growth inside of these programs. There's many more programs. We every 6 months we take them out of town. Take them out of town, or take them across the United States, or even out of the country, and show them something different. Because the repetition is what trains or teaches a baby. Repetition. If they see something every day, they're gonna tend to believe that that's the truth. And once they believe that that's the truth, then there ain't nobody in the world that can tell them that ain't the truth. You know. But the whole thing is, if we could show them something different instead of letting them see the same thing every day, then they'll start wanting more. That's that. And thus the See More Want More program. Also I have the program where, but let me pull your coat. Let me pull our viewers' coat to something. I do a lot of reading, I do a lot of studying, I do a lot of looking. But from 2014 to 2020, there has been 64 million young black girls and boys snatched from the shores of America, and don't nobody know where it's at. It's like the slave trade all over again. And
64 million.
64 million. You can Google that. I got a video on my phone right now where back in 13, 12 years ago, a man mysteriously walked up to a hospital and threw a bag full of fresh kidneys at the door. And he didn't get in the camera shot. He knew exactly where the camera was, disappeared. And then they went in there like, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And those kidneys came. The man doctors on the interview that said they looked like they had just been removed 24 to 48 hours ago, fresh. Like, those, it just baffling to me because there was no FBI investigation, there was nothing done, and they get away with stuff like this. But those can be very well some of our own sisters, bro. So I got to bring awareness to stuff like that. But my whole program is centered around training these young
Just
girls how to not,
just
how to
one
walk.
second. We got a live caller come in. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Yes, caller, you are live on the air.
Okay, I want to ask the guest a question. What is the name of your program?
Well, it's called Merit Men Assist
I
in
want to ask
Raising
the guest
Children.
a question.
Yeah, can you
Oh,
hear it? Can you hear him talking?
Mm-hmm.
it's called Maric, Maric, Men Assist in Raising Children, and also Warwick, Women Assist in Raising Children. Yes. So that
Okay.
means,
So how
go
can
ahead.
we get in touch with you, Mr. Michael? You have
Through
like
Richard,
email or a website?
through Richard right there. Richard is my go-to man. He has my book. Actually, he has my direct contact, and I work a lot, so it's like me and Richard, we like brothers in this, and this program is it will change the face of our whole youth. You know, I believe in that the most because I know that me learning how to work with my hands taught me how to critically think and not be so rushed to judgment. Because when you emotionally thinking, you only emotionally responding, but when you can think critically, you intelligently responding, and that's what our youth are missing the most. Even to the point where we got to break them from. I mean, most of our children nowadays can't even write a simple letter without spelling a R. Are you okay with a R U and a OK? You know, so that is a troublesome thing to me because after a while they're gonna be more like robots than human thinkers. You know, and we got to start trying to stem that a little bit, and it falls on the parents, and it falls on me, and it falls on the community as well. We don't have to wait on the government to do anything because it's the simple answer. If everybody with a skill and everybody with education decided, hey, I'm gonna take this weekend and I'm gonna train this 12, 13-year old. I mean, I don't mean to ramble, but I know 21-year-old young black men right now who cannot even cut grass. I'm trying to hire somebody for $17 an hour right now, and I can't find out one worker because it's like our youth is not, they don't care about that anymore. If they can't play basketball, if they can't play football, if they can't be actors or YouTubers nowadays, then the only other alternative they see that they can do is sell drugs. And that's what's leading our children astray because we feel like there's no other alternative. But if they knew that they had a free class they could come to and learn how to drive a forklift and they can make money driving a forklift, or if they knew they can be a carpenter and make the best cabinet in the world and become an instant millionaire over education, then that might give them a other alternative other than going to sell drugs. That's my take on it. You still there, caller?
Thanks for calling, caller. Thank you, caller. Caller go. But so um definitely, man, you spoke on a lot as far as the youth and their lack of ability, and it does take more of a community effort
Yeah, no doubt.
to right these wrongs. And of course, people who have been down that path, it definitely takes them or us coming to the forefront to actually go back and teach those skills. You mentioned something about working with your hands. It's funny. I met a young guy the other day when I was getting something. He was 15, a young Caucasian brother. He was 15. And
Hmm.
I asked, I said, "What you been doing all day?" He said, "Man, I've been working." I said, "What you do?" He said, "It's funny you brought it up." He said, "I was working in the hog farms with my granddad today."
See what I
He
mean?
said he was working in the hog farm with his granddad. I said, "Man, that's awesome, man." He said, "Yeah, man."
Awesome.
And I also do welding at 15. He said, "Yeah, I
See
do
what I
welding."
mean?
I said, "What kind of welding?" "TIG welding, rig welding, stick welding." And I was like, "What? Where did you learn that?" He's at 15. He's like, my granddad. And I'm planning on going to school, and so we also have to take that interest in the youth to give them those skills that are
Let me
not being taught
let me
in
say this.
school. Like
Let
they
me say
were.
this.
You
Yeah, because they
mentioned
took it out of school. They took it out of
uh,
school. They took it
they
out of
took
school in
they
the
took a
90s.
lot of the industrial programs out of school, and when they did that, that is the same time that they entered. It's well documented that the CIA was instrumental in putting drugs in certain areas and certain communities, and without those skills that you mentioned, or without those opportunities, the deindustrialization of the inner cities, then what what a lot of people did was gravitate to that lifestyle. So you're definitely correct in that.
Let me say this before we get off air, Rick. In the 50s and the 60s, construction and black. Let's even go back to Black Wall Street, that everybody is coming to the knowledge of now. I've been known about Black Wall Street. Even in Black Wall Street, our brothers and sisters were blacksmiths, dressmakers, shoemakers. They have put the horse shoes on the horses and stuff. They could go up to the horse, and the horse won't even damn part of my language. The horse won't even react no type of way because they knew that man right there was just there to damn put the horseshoe on. And they were all types of skills, trades that they used to build themselves up. So in the 60s and the 70s, they had the same skills. So once those skills were stopped and they didn't offer it in school anymore, then the lack of it became null and void. So now, when I work construction to this day, all I see is Mexicans and whites. The whites is holding the blueprints, and the Mexicans is putting it together. There's very few blacks, but that comes from the fact that the curriculum decided that okay, we're gonna take this out of school, and it crippled a wide variety of young black males who just can't sit in the school setting and gain no knowledge. They can't dribble a ball. They can't sit in no school. Then the only other alternative is to follow what Uncle Joe was doing when he had all that money and driving that Cadillac. You know, so the allure was there for our children who couldn't do these things to go this way, which I was one of them. You know, you was one of them. A whole lot of us that was one of them that came from a good home who could have just, if they would have had that shop and I would have went in there and I would have put that cabinet together, that cabinet looked good, and I was like, damn, I'm finna build it this way. And I would have came up with a cabinet that nobody had ever built, then everybody would have wanted that cabinet. I would have been an instant millionaire. Even if you take and you look at the doctorate degree, a doctorate degree affords you the ability to make $250,000 a year. But I work for a man right now named Mike Queen over here at Raleigh Queenscape, who built his company from the ground up, and now this man making millions of dollars every week just by laying sod and planting plants and stuff of this nature. So really, if you learn how to work with your hands, it can afford you the ability to make more money than the person that has a doctorate degree. But
Yeah.
the
So
allure is not there.
yeah, we running short. We got about a minute to go, but there's definitely
No doubt.
some great points that you're making about the educational system, where a lot
Get
of trades have been taken out to school, and
y'all
um
get climatized. Y'all get that book
well,
climatized. Richard Taylor got it.
yeah. So uh
Climatized, Richard.
but I definitely enjoyed the conversation, even though we
Me
we
too.
had a few difficulties. But once again, we certainly want to thank our guest, Michael Williams, uh,
No doubt.
a man who has made tremendous strides in his life, from making a mistake at 18 to paying his debt to society, and coming out and being a very productive member. So we want to thank you for your insight on many
Much love.
different subjects. I want to thank you for your passion and your love for the youth, and trying to help others avoid the things that you went through. So I want to thank you once again. You've been with WBIS Awesome Radio, 106.9 FM on your FM dial. You can once again download our app at www.wbisawesomeradio.org on Alexa, Google, and App Store. Thank you guys for joining. Lord, I need you to smile on me. Lord, I'm pleading. Tell me where you want me to go. I want to be right with you. Oh, and oh Lord, I'm tired of going through.
Lord, I want is a touch from you to guide me through. I'm living through the wire. I'm living through the wire. Can you save me? I'm living through the wire. I'm so scared of fire. I'm so scared of fire. Can you save
WBISLP 1069, Winterville, Aden, Grifton, Southside, Greenville, North Carolina.
In the witness for my Lord. In the witness for my Lord. My soul. In the witness for my Lord. In the witness for my Lord. Be a witness, be a witness. On the run along, he saved my soul. I'm not ashamed. Got love right. In that soul. Be a witness, be a witness. On the run along, he saved my soul. I'm not ashamed. Got love right. In that soul. My soul. In the witness for my Lord. I'm witness for my Lord. My soul. In the witness for my Lord. I'm witness for my Lord. Be a witness, be a witness. On the run along, he saved my soul. I'm not ashamed. Got love right. In that soul. Listen that right. Be a witness, be a witness. On the run along, he saved my soul. I'm not ashamed. Got love right. In that soul. Listen that right. Be a witness, be a witness. On the run along, he saved my soul. I'm not ashamed. Got love right. In that soul. Listen that right. Be a witness, be a witness. On the run along, he saved my soul. I'm not ashamed. Got love right. In that soul. Listen that right. Be a witness, be a witness. On the run along, he saved my soul. I'm not ashamed. Got love right. In that soul. Listen that right. Everywhere I go, I want the world to know. Jesus lives in me, and He set me free. Everywhere I go, I want the world to know. Jesus lives in me, and He set me free. Everywhere I go, I want the world to know. Jesus lives in me, and He set me free.